days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time, and there's been a lot of things that have come from Saturday's football game, and one of those has been a big question about the offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers. Not just the starters, but also the backup guys. We really want to get into this and discuss, is this offensive line a problem, or is there something else to this?
Definitely want to get into this. Definitely want to have a conversation around this. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. That way you don't miss any of the content and any of the things that we got to talk about with this team, because there's tons of things coming your way. So make sure you're notified as well. Hit that notification bell. Share the video with the faithful. And Ant, let's get into the offensive line. Should we be worried?
No. I mean, in a short way, I don't think so. I think we need to really kind of evaluate even further the way that the offensive line has played and realize that there are some moving parts, right? There are some things, especially going over the film even more, there are some things that need to be cleaned up from a communication standpoint. I think not all of it is. I think if it was just really bad play, I would be more concerned. I would have a lot of more emotions and feelings on that, but I really don't. I think a lot of it was just an instant reaction to the fact that Trey Lance was having to move around, Trey Lance was getting sacked, and people didn't like to see that. And unfortunately, that happens. But not all of it can be put on the offensive line. Last year, the same sort of thing happened. When you're playing in certain situations, you have blitzes and it's not recognized, and they don't fix it. They don't move. They don't slide people over to help out. It ends up causing issues for your offensive line. So I think we can really get into this and evaluate which players really need to step it up and which guys are doing fine. It's just there was a communication issue or some sort of situation that caused them to have a less than stellar performance.
All right, and let's start with Daniel Brunskill, because that's the first name that comes to mind for a lot of people in terms of yesterday. There was some talks around him having struggles in that preseason game against the Chiefs a few days ago. And look, Daniel Brunskill, for the most part, I think both you and I agree, played pretty solid. He had one bad play that is probably worse than it needs to be because he has a teammate kind of caught up underneath him. Overall, I liked the things that Brunskill put on film yesterday. I liked some of the things that we saw in the run game. And some people are talking about, well, the run game didn't have as much success, and maybe that's Daniel Brunskill, or maybe it's just, certain things in areas. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Alex Mack isn't out there making calls, helping them get into the right situations, seeing who it is they're supposed to be getting into and out of, and also guys maybe not necessarily wanting to check out of certain runs into different packages because, well, you don't have your leader, your go-to guy in Alex Mack out there. I liked a lot of the things that Daniel Brunskill put on film yesterday, and I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I mean, Trent Williams wasn't out there. Alex Mack wasn't out there. They're kind of two important pieces to have out there when you want to have a run game be very successful, because even if you're running to the right on an outside zone, Trent Williams a lot of times will clean people all the way through and create a huge cutback lane. The running back will press to the line of scrimmage and then find that area, that window, that hole to go through. And if you don't have guys that are going to play that strong there, I mean, we love Jaylon Moore, but he's still a rookie. And so expecting, the offensive line to play at a top level without two of your best players out there is asking too much. I thought we saw some good things from Mike McGlinchey. He held his ground. He looked really good. Brunskill next to him looked fine. You're right. He had the one situation where Trey Sermon ended up getting underneath him, and he ended up on his back. And I think everyone took a look at it and saw him on his back and said, okay, that's awful. You can't ever do that as an offensive lineman. But we all realize when people get under your legs or you get your legs tangled, sometimes you end up on the ground. It's not where you want to be. But when you're going against an all-pro level player like he was going against, that happens sometimes. Brunskill put together good snaps. He's been putting together great days of practice. I'm not concerned about Brunskill at all. In fact, I'm encouraged by how Brunskill's been playing all camp and even during this game. And I think Brunskill's going to have himself a nice year. This offensive line is better than people think, especially the starters.
Correct. And look, the conversation has been Banks, Brunskill, Banks, Brunskill, Banks, Brunskill. We've been talking about this. We felt this could be a position battle to watch, and as of right now, it's really not. Banks hasn't developed the way that we all thought he was going to develop. He hasn't looked as polished as we thought he was supposed to look. And Daniel Brunskill has really taken over the mentorship role really at this spot now at this point. He's trying to help this kid get up to speed, get up to snuff, understand what he's supposed to understand. And then he's got things he needs to clean up. In pass pro sets, if you got a guy who's quicker in front of him, who's a little more agile, especially going laterally, Banks has struggled at times. We saw that yesterday. He had one where guy kind of gave a stutter step off the line. Banks didn't get first contact. He almost waited for him to close the distance down. And then he got beat. He got shook on the little stutter step move, and the guy got a nice rip move around and was able to get pressure on Trey right away. And I think that was the one he actually caused the fumble on. Where he got in and smacked the ball right out of Trey's hand. So Brunskill has been definitely the guy who's the leader in the clubhouse. And Banks has shown that there's definitely some things that he needs to clean up in order for him to take the next step and be a guy who can push and compete for this job. I'm not worried, though, because we saw Banks on Saturday at Levi's in the open practice at Levi Stadium, and he was getting beat consistently on almost every play by Maurice Hurst. That hasn't been the case since that Saturday practice.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Banks, he's not even in the conversation for this job. They had brought up that eventually maybe he could work in there, but you had Brunskill, you had Compton, and you had Mckivitz that all took first-string snaps during practices. You did not see that from Banks. This is not a competition. It's not going to be a competition. Brunskill beat out Mckivitz. He beat out Tom Compton. They moved Mckivitz to left guard. They moved Compton to right tackle. So he has this job won. As far as Banks goes, you're right. The development has been there. The technique has gotten a little bit better. The way he sets up, the way he's getting himself in proper position. The play you were discussing, he's giving up ground because it's a pass blocking situation, and the guy gives him a stutter step inside. Banks commits to it. He made a move, and then the guy comes back and he's able to use the lateral movement, which we've discussed is an issue for Banks overall. The way he handles it. If he's able to fix this, he will. One thing you got to make sure you do, and Jaylon Moore had a problem with this later, which I'll go over, but you don't want to commit to anything. Just because you see him make a move, it's better to stay more center, ready to handle him either way they go. Once you commit, I know he's worried about getting beat to the inside because that's the quickest track to the quarterback, so that's why he jumped in. But going back outside, then he was off balance and not able to get his feet to do what he wanted him to do. He's got to get his hands on this guy. He's got to get a punch into that chest plate and stop the forward momentum. He will do that, but he's working on it. It's all about technique. It's all about getting through your process. He's getting there. The technique is there. His improvements from Saturday to Tuesday to Thursday from when we were there and ultimately to this game is encouraging. He will develop. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter this season, but sometime down the road, hopefully we can expect this guy to play well. Yes, he's a developmental second-round pick. That's okay. We don't have to have this guy start because we have Daniel Brunskill, who handles people like Aaron Donald.
That's accurate. He doesn't handle people like Aaron Donald. And people are like, well, if he handles people like Aaron Donald, he should be able to handle Chris Jones from the Chiefs. So he shouldn't get beat like that. Everyone is going to get beat at some times.
True.
That was the only time on film where Daniel Brunskill got absolutely torched during this game. For the most part, he held up nicely against this Chiefs front four. I'm encouraged by what Daniel Brunskill has continued to do, and I'm encouraged by what guys like Colton Mckivitz have been able to show and what he's been able to do, because Colton Mckivitz has had some moments where he has stood out and shined. We kind of thought this guy might be competing for the swing tackle role. It looks like right now he's going to be a guy who's second line behind guys like Brunskill and Lincoln Tomlinson.
Mckivitz is a guy that can play any position.
Correct.
So he has so much flexibility. They're getting him. He already knows how to play offensive tackle. He got some time at right guard. Now they're getting him time at left guard. Mckivitz is going to be on this roster, and he's going to be a nice depth piece. He's someone you can count on to go in there and compete and make blocks. He's nasty in the run game. He's very physical, very aggressive to the point of attack. And in the pass game, he is very serviceable. He needs to improve. But once again, this is his first preseason game. Yeah, he played a little bit in the regular season, but he played at right guard. He was kind of thrown to the wolves. Adjusting to all that, having his first OTAs, his first offseason is going to be good for this guy, and he's going to be able to grow and get better. His technique is pretty good. Yes, we thought he was going to be the swing tackle, or at least be able to compete for it, but Jaylon Moore is putting a stranglehold on that thing. So Mckivitz is developing in other areas. But it's all about flexibility with his offensive line. You might even see these guys, especially this second unit, playing a bunch of different positions as you move forward. But Mckivitz did a solid job, a bang-up job, and I thought there was a vast improvement from us seeing Tom Compton at left guard on Tuesday to seeing Colton Mckivitz at left guard on Thursday. There was a big improvement in that area, so overall Mckivitz was an upgrade from Compton at that guard spot.
And that left side of the line when Jaylon Moore and Colton Mckivitz has been out there has been pretty stout. There haven't been a lot of times where Trey's gotten pressure coming from that side. A lot of the times when we've seen pressure, it's been on situations where the box has been stacked or overloaded. almost on his strong side, with the area where he should be able to see the field, and we just don't have enough people to cover it. That's where I've seen a lot of the pressure coming from.
Yeah, they've brought some blitzes off his blind side as well. They did it, in the game.
They did.
But we saw that a little bit at practice. Guys were able to get home, Jared Maiden and those guys blitzing off the outside and putting pressure on Lance. Because it is usually because there's a numbers issue. More guys are coming than there are to block. It's not that the offensive line didn't block the right guys. They did it. Now, in the game, we had an issue with that, with communication between Warner and Coleman. But in most of the circumstances in practice, we didn't see that. But they were working on hot routes. They're working on Trey Lance getting rid of the ball, finding his guy, and letting it go when you're outnumbered. When you have advantage in the pass game if you can get the ball out in time. Yeah, I think overall they've looked pretty good and they've been able to handle it, but there is still work to do as far as picking up blitzes and communication, because when you get Jake Brendel, the backup center, in there with these guys, the communication seems to be an issue. You don't see that with Alex Mack in there, but you do see it with some of these backup guys, which is no different than last year with Ronis Grasu and even Daniel Brunskill, who was learning a center position, which he definitely wasn't familiar with.
No, and that's the next question I was actually going to have for you is, with a guy like Brunskill right now operating as the right guard and really not taking snaps with the second team in terms of at the center spot, I think you and I both think that this guy is probably your true backup center. I would expect to see a drastic difference between Brendel and his operation with that second unit and a guy like Brunskill at center with that unit.
Yeah, because Brunskill actually has more experience playing center than Brendel in NFL football games. Brunskill got it thrown to the Wolves last year. Now he has an understanding. Plus, he has Alex Mack to lean on right now. I guarantee you, he's been working on learning this. Okay, there's a reason why he took a picture when they were doing their promotional pictures, and he's in a center stance with the ball, Daniel Brunskill. And we all thought he was going to be the guard, but he was still preparing for center. Daniel Brunskill is the backup center, and it makes the most sense because you want guys that are flexible. You don't want him to have to move to center, but if you did, we've already shown Colt Mckivitz could slide in there, or Tom Compton, or somebody like that are ready right now. I think the only thing that's bad is we are all expecting Aaron Banks to be that guy. Like, if Brunskill has to go over, Banks can slide in and we're okay. He might not be at the level Brunskill is right now, but he's going to get there. That is not the case, however. Brunskill is vastly better than Banks, and Banks isn't ready yet. So we don't need an injury from Alex Mack. We need Alex Mack to stay healthy so Brunskill can play guard deep into this season and give Banks an opportunity to get better. If not, it's going to be Colton Mckivitz that plays right guard, that goes in there and stabilizes. He's proven he can do it. At what level is still to be seen, but he's definitely developed from last year. He's better than last year. So any film you saw last year, throw it out the window because Colton Mckivitz is a better football player now.
He's a much better football player now, and he's shown it and he's developed it. And look, there's still some things that we gotta see out of this group overall. Jaylon Moore had and looked fantastic operating with the first and the second group. He did have some moments and some times where he struggled in terms of hand placement, getting beater on the outside. Some of that can be helped, like you talked about during our live stream, with cadences.
Correct.
Cadence calls, making sure you're keeping the defensive line off balance so they can't anticipate snap counts and fly off the ball, because the one time that I remember they got beat really badly, and he still was able to get a hand on the guy and make it really difficult for him to get there. It was perfect timing. That DN Taco Charlton timed it perfectly for the Chiefs. He came flying off the edge, and Moore had to struggle to try and get there and get a hand on him and slow him down even a little bit before he got to Trey Lance. The snap count can help. Jaylon Moore obviously has things that he's going to have to clean up. This is a guy who didn't even start as a tackle in college. Like, he started off his football playing career on the defensive side of the ball. So there's still technique things that he's learning, hand placement, get-offs, his kick slide, all of these things he's still working on and developing as a tackle. To be brought in and combine that with the fact that this guy initially we all thought was supposed to be a guard, and Shanahan and Lynch had kind of talked about this guy being a potential guard, maybe even a tackle, but they wanted to get a look at him and some different spots. The things that he has shown in the how far he's come already with this team at that left tackle spot behind Trent Williams has been glorious to watch, and I'm glad to see him develop and taking the steps that he's taken so far.
It 100% was a cadence issue because somebody got going on the inside as well.
Sure.
And was able to win the battle inside because they got off the ball so fast. That's why when Jaylon Moore tried to push Charlton pass, Trey Lance wasn't able to step up into the pocket because he was getting pressure into his face. And when that happens, then it's a done deal. It's over. It's best just to go down, take the sack, don't try to do too much. But Jaylon Moore overall's technique has been pretty good. He's been solid. There are moments that he looks fantastic in practice. He had moments in the game where you expect him to look like a rookie. That's good. Now you get it on film. Now you get to work on it. I think it's crazy that if you were to believe that these guys are already going to be operating at starter level. There's a reason that he's a backup, and he's going to have time to develop. He's got Trent freaking Williams ahead of him. This guy's going to develop. Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams are very solid tackles in this league, and Jaylon Moore just has to be there in case there's an issue because, unfortunately, Trent Williams is not going to play all 17 games this year. He won't. It just never works out. If he does, that's amazing. Mike McGlinchey as well. That he might miss a game or two. The good thing about them is they don't usually miss a lot of football games. So Jaylon Moore only has to go in there and get it done. But he's big, he's physical, he's athletic, and he's developing. And Forrester, the coach, is working on him getting better. I think he is getting better. He looked a lot better than I thought he was going to look when we saw him in practice. So there's already great improvement from college. I think the sky is the limit for this guy. I really am excited about him, and I'm not concerned about anything that happened in the preseason game. If it was to happen continuously, if he wasn't fixing those mistakes as we go through the preseason, then yes, I'll be more concerned. But not after one performance where I thought it was at times looked really great and then at times was shaky. But I think some of it is not always his fault.
Correct. I agree with you there completely. I like a lot of things that Jaylon Moore's put down and a lot of things that he's done. I think, in all honesty, he has been the surprise for me on this O-line in terms of his performance and the things he has done. He looks much more polished than I expected. But also, what do you expect out of fifth-round picks with the 49ers? This is what they do.
Yeah.
They hit on these guys.
100%. They do. They execute, and it looks like they hit on the fifth-rounders all across the board.
It really does.
Once again, just going in and making sure that they've done a good job between Shanahan, Lynch, and Adam Peters of locating talent, getting them out there, and then knowing that they have the right coaches to develop them. And that's part of the reason I have a lot of faith is I know the coaches that they have out there are very experienced and very good at what they do. And you see the technique improvements. If I didn't see technique improvements, I would be concerned. But these guys are pretty good. And just the fact Banks got a little bit better just in a week. I mean, think about that. 1 week and he improved. Was it the vast improvement that everyone's expecting? Probably not. But it's all about steps. And these guys are going to get it done. And I think overall the 49ers offensive line has a lot of depth and a lot of good depth, and we shouldn't be overly concerned about how they're going to operate. I bet you they put together better performances as we go through the preseason.
Correct. And when you get guys like Jaylon Moore who aren't having to come in against that second unit, having taken a bunch of reps against the first team for the Chiefs already, you may see him perform better. Same thing with a guy like Banks. The more time he has to develop and be comfortable in that situation, the better things get.
Correct.
I would be willing to bet that Aaron Banks would have a lot more success with a guy like Daniel Brunskill operating as the center, being able to give him more insightful calls, understanding of what's going on, and blitz pickups and where guys are supposed to be than he will with a guy like Jake Brendel right now. So a lot of that success can feed off of each other to have more and more and more success as a unit and as a group. The interesting thing for me is going to be who is going to be the lineman that we end up keeping, because there's some guys right now operating the second team that may not be there, and there's definitely some guys in the third team who haven't really set themselves apart and given them any sort of reason to move up that list.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear on who's going to make this roster. I don't think there's going to be very much question. It's the guys that are really standing out, the guys that have the ability that can grow really fast, and then there's the guys that are on the back end that are struggling to make things happen. The good news is we're going to have practices against the Chargers. We're going to see different fronts. We're going to see different moves, different stunts. They're going to do a lot of different things because they're trying to help each other get better. They don't play each other during the season. They play each other in the preseason so they can really get into it. The communication thing is going to be worked on. That is a great place to do it. When you've got to worry about taking snaps against Joey Bosa or picking up a blitz of Derwin James, there's a lot of things that are going to go into this, and that's going to be nice. We're finally going to get the communication. Jake Brendel will grow, even though I don't think Jake Brendel ultimately makes this football team. I think he will have a better performance in the next game because of these practices. It's invaluable for an offensive line to gel. You don't just go out there with moving pieces and automatically be able to feel comfortable playing with the guy next to you. There is a feel to it. So getting these guys out there and getting them reps consistently. I mean, we just talked about the fact that Tom Compton was playing right tackle and Colton Mckivitz was playing left guard, which wasn't the norm early in the week. The fact that they changed, now they've got to learn to play next to somebody else. And you can kind of get a feel for how things go, but when you're playing next to someone that you trust and somebody that you can kind of get an idea what they're going to do just by how the alignment is, that communication is there, you play at a different level than you do when you're playing with somebody you don't really have a feel with. So it does change. No offensive area, on the team, do you have to have these sort of chemistry things. It is different from any other position in football.
And it's 5 guys having to have chemistry together. It's not a situation where you have a quarterback and a receiver. We only have 2 guys really have to have that chemistry and on the same page. It's 5 guys who have to work together as one solid unit in order for your run game to have success, in order for your running backs to be able to be comfortable with your blocking schemes, knowing, when you have your hips turned, this means, I'm going here and things of that nature, or just seeing it enough times to know that when you go head up with a guy, what your tendency is as a lineman, which way you're going to take him, what way are you comfortable dominating this guy in space. The more that they work together, the more fluid it becomes, the more the offense begins to operate at the clip that you want it to operate at. And there are still a lot of new pieces and new names. So people and the 49ers fans themselves just need to give it some time. Alex Mack, this is his first time operating with this core 4 group of guys. Right? Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey have worked on opposite sides for a full season already, but what you didn't have was the stability at right guard and center position, and that center position is the captain. He's the orchestrator of this entire Kyle Shanahan run game and scheme.
Yeah, these guys are going to be able to get it together. That's why you'll see a little bit of them getting snaps against the Chargers together, and then the dress rehearsal against the Raiders, you'll see a lot of reps, maybe even a whole half of reps for these guys. And if you get that, then you're going to see these guys be able to execute because in practice they have proven that they can work together very well. These guys work together, Alex Mack with blitz pickups and that sort of thing. You won't see the same sort of thing. The only time you will see free blitzers is when they have a hot route. They have too many guys coming. It'll be the farthest outside man because they always make sure they pick up the inside guys, which is their job. So you're going to see that, but that is not an offensive line issue. That is an issue for the actual call of the play. So that means that is on the onus of the quarterback, whether that's Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, and the onus on whether it's a running back or receiver to make sure they break off their hot route, get to where they need to be so they can get the ball out quick before that guy gets there. There is a weakness in the defense at that point. If you're bringing an extra guy, then there is a blocker. There's a weakness. You just have to take advantage of it.
Got to take advantage of it. You got to be able to react and work as a unit. That's going to come with time, folks. So patience. Should you be worried about the O-line? Not yet. One preseason game, folks. There's no reason to overreact.
We'll talk after the Chargers game.
Exactly. After the Chargers game, you get a little more context, right? A little more experience, some practice reps live against another defense, some actual more game reps for these O-linemen. Get a better feel of where they're at mentally and where they're at as a unit. Then we can start making some actual assumptions and draw some actual conclusions. As of right now, they have things they need to work on. They've put those things that they need to work on tape. They've put the good things that they already are doing on tape as well. So now you get to work on your strengths, improve your weaknesses, and this team gets to continue trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think the gel is going to come. You just don't go out there and just make it happen. Chemistry takes time, and they're going to get it done, and they're going to work it out. They have a good football coach, on the offensive line, and they're going to get this thing together. They're going to get it down. A lot of young guys who are going to, be asked to do a lot of big things this year. But I think overall the offensive line, there's a lot of optimism there. I'm still high on them. And this performance did not shake me from that belief that these guys are going to be very solid in the year. And let's all remember too, we're talking about offensive line depth here. Not the starters who we're going to see, 95% of the time. We're talking about the depth, the likelihood that these guys play as a second team unit any other time besides preseason is not going to happen.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah. So I hear people say all the time, they were saying, oh well, if we have a couple injuries, we're in a lot of trouble. Yeah, anybody is. If you're an offensive line in the NFL and you have a couple injuries, you're in a lot of trouble. That's just the way football works. There's not a lot of great ones that can do it at the highest level. So when you have them, you have to latch on to them. That's why you pay Trent Williams so much money. So yes, if we lost Trent Williams, we're in trouble because we don't have anyone that can play at that level, because no one has anyone that can play at that level. That's just what happens in football. That's just the way it works.
It's the way it works. It's why you have these things in preseason. That's why you have 90-man rosters, so that you can put together the best 53, because not everyone, you don't typically have ones and twos at every position that play at an elite level. Usually your ones play at an elite to very good level, and then your twos play at a good to average level, and you have to roll with whatever you have to roll with in case there's an injury. We hope for no injuries. It's not 2020. It's 2021. It's a new year. But you know what, Ant? It's not a new podcast. It's not a new show. It's a growing channel. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. And down below right now in the comment section, let us know. Are you worried about the O-line? Should we be more worried about the O-line? Our takes are totally wrong. It's time to hit the panic button. Smack it right now, or we need some time. We have time. Let this team fester. Let it grow. Let them develop. Give these O-linemen some time, and all of those worries will go away. We want to hear from you, Cutback Crew.
Before you hit the panic button, let the 49ers cutback be that resistance to hold you back, because there's no reason to hit it right now. There is time. If we get if we get into the Raiders game and it looks really rough against them, I'll allow you to put a finger onto that panic button. But right now, don't do it. There's no reason to. There's no reason to go over the top and into that world of deep darkness that can be 49ers Twitter and 49ers crazy takes. Just don't do it. Just keep it. Keep it even keel. Watch this development. If it doesn't develop, then you have every right to make that opinion, but you don't have to make it today, because you know what? All it was one preseason game. There's plenty to come. There's plenty of great football to come, and progress will be made.
Progress will be made. Progress continues to be made on this channel, so make sure you're a member of the Cutback Crew. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell, and make sure you share this content with the rest of the faithful so we can continue to grow this community, continue to put out great content, and have great conversations, because it's a fun time over here.
It is a fun time, and this is what's most exciting. It's getting to talk 49ers football with people that love 49ers football. There's nothing better than that. I can't wait till we get to the next game, but we got a lot to talk about before we get there, so I'm just going to take it all in, enjoy it, and it'll be here soon enough.
It will be here soon enough. Make sure you go to the Cutback Shop today, 49erscutbackshop.com. Cop yourself some great 49ers Cutback merch. Both of us have the same shirt on. It's beautiful. It's lovely. You want to represent the Cutback Crew. You want to represent your 49ers. Training Camp 2021 is officially over and a wrap, but the preseason is here. There's lots of great things still to come. Lots of great content still to come on this channel. Whether you're worried, right? Giving bold takes in the chat, whether you're optimistic about Trey Lance or optimistic about Jimmy, or whether you're just yelling at that mean ocean, we appreciate everything the Cutback Crew brings to the table.
Yeah, you tell that mean ocean.
Tell it. Tell that mean ocean. Indeed. And this is a good one.
Yeah.
O-line, shouldn't be too worried yet. And Cutback Crew and 49ers fans, until next time, you stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.